most partnerships fail in dentistry.
Yeah.
So let's plan to fail.
Yeah.
Not pessimistically, but let's have an out.
Yeah.
And I'm
smart
best
account.
thing he ever did.
Welcome back, peeps, to another episode of the Tooth or Dare podcast, peeps, with your peep, Irene. Rolling out another episode from Voices of Dentistry. I don't know what month it is in the year right now, but I've got 2 guests on this episode, or 1 guest and a co-host. Craig, will you be my co-host on this one?
Please.
Craig Harder is a longtime fan of the
Yes.
podcast.
I would be thrilled to be a fill-in.
Will you be
co-host.
there's you're not filling in for anyone.
No.
You are just co-hosting.
Just co-hosting?
So you will help me interview
Yes.
our next guest.
He's a great color commentator.
You know,
yeah.
I had a previous life as a
You did?
radio.
Yeah.
I need to
host
hear
for-
all about this.
He's a sportscaster.
Yep. I did TV and radio sportscasting for local high schools and college for
Stop
about 10
it.
years.
No, he's
All
professional.
right, we need to
Yeah.
hear about this.
You can't
So
afford
Dr. Craig Harder is going to be my co-host, and today we're interviewing Dr. Steve Vorholt, who is also a podcaster, longtime podcaster from all the way back to yesterday when we recorded together your very first episode.
That's right. The cherry was broken. Is that the term?
I think it's popped.
Popped.
Yeah.
What an aggressive way to eat a cherry. Anyway,
I don't think you can eat it and pop it.
it's just a pop and it's done. So you're just wasting cherries. Jeez.
What do you do with the pit then?
Yeah, I need to find out where the origin of this
Yeah,
idiom is.
this YouTube is going to take this down.
Popping cherries.
Well, in the first 10 seconds.
Why isn't it like smush? Smush cherries.
Oh, yeah.
Smushed my cherry.
Oh
then
my
you can
God.
eat it, turn it into a paste,
Crush
a
my
jam.
cherry. Yeah, smush is better.
Yeah.
Irene, where should we get back on track?
Yeah, let's get back on track. So, first time interviewing you, I want to know a little bit about you. So we do the way back playback, remember? Craig?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
So this is the thing where we go like way back in time, and you begin from a young lad.
Okay.
Do you remember what it was like to be born? Like, what was birth like for you?
it was like being a smushed cherry.
I knew somehow cherry was coming back into
I
that.
feel like that needs to be part of the title of the episode. Yeah, tell me a
Smushed.
little bit about you. Like, what were you like as a kid? Where'd you go to school? High school, college? Did you play in the band? Were
No,
you?
I was not a band. I was not a band kid.
What were you like?
I was born and raised in Ohio,
Okay.
which kind of borders Canada, so we're neighbors.
I mean, a
No?
lot of states border Canada.
I mean, there's a
honey.
lake in the way, but
there's like the span of the entire country borders Canada.
But I'm a northern state. I have a northern border.
Okay,
Okay, I could have anyway.
cool.
Born and raised in Ohio, Cincinnati. Went to Ohio State for undergrad and dental school.
He's also wearing an Ohio State College of Dentistry shirt.
It's I
How
bought
long-
this from the Ohio State ASDA last year as like a
Oh,
fundraiser. I was
okay.
just stoked to get some fresh swag because I graduated 10 years ago. So all my stuff's kind of old and doesn't fit. I don't know
Got
why
it.
it doesn't fit. Must have shrunk. It happens. So,
It must have shrunk.
It must have shrunk.
It
That's
must
the
have
only.
shrunk.
That's the only thing that
There's
could
no
happen.
other reason why my clothes would
No,
fit me. They
just
for sure just shrunk.
Washed too many times.
Yes.
Went to college up there.
It's
stayed
like
in-
spandex also, guys. There's just so you know, there's no cotton in it whatsoever.
No.
It's like completely polyester.
all new
and it's like
clothing
a
is stretchy.
Okay.
It's the best thing that came out of the 2010s. Stretchy clothes. I have Lululemon scrub pants. They're the best.
You are really fashion forward in your scrub
Thank you.
setup.
Thank you.
Mhm.
They're so expensive that I only bought 2. And I bought 3 other black.
I'm surprised you get
Um,
figs like all the cool
I
kids
had
these
figs,
days.
but figs are like not cool anymore. It's like a Tesla.
Yeah.
Like figs used to be cool. Well, now you see a Tesla everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I'm over figs.
I was
It's
never
Lulu.
into figs.
Lulu, what do you call them when they cinch at the ankle?
Joggers.
Joggers.
Yeah, Lulu
Yeah.
joggers. So
Yeah.
then I bought some off-brand joggers.
Did you hear what I said during your lecture yesterday when you were like, what is one thing that you want your surgeon to
You yelled out
do?
figs.
I yelled out, looks good in scrub pants.
Those actually aren't joggers. Those are just pants. I'm just tall.
Okay, let's get back to where you went to school. You went to Ohio State.
Went to Ohio State, practiced in Columbus for 7 years.
Do you have any siblings?
I have one older sister.
Is she in dental?
Nope.
Any of your parents in dental?
Nope.
So where did dental come from?
My dad, when I was a senior in high school, showed me the Newsweek top jobs report
No way.
and said 3 of the top 5 are dentists, oral surgeons, orthodontists, and dentists.
Stop.
And I was like, that sounds like a good idea.
It just sounds like a good idea.
I was a smart kid. I went to Ohio State for engineering. Did that for a
what
year.
kind of engineering?
It was going to do aeronautical engineering. And
You're smart. Craig.
Yeah.
I did the engineering honors program, and I was just kind of like,
honors?
Yeah,
With a U or without a U? How do you spell honors?
Without a U.
There's no U.
There's
in
no
there.
U in honors. It's a team
There's
sport.
no U in fluoride.
It's a team sport. Well, I did that, and I talked, and then I had an idea that I wanted to go to dentistry. Well, my Ohio State does a really cool thing with, I don't know if they do this anymore, but your random roommate. If you check the box, I want a random roommate.
Yeah.
You can like put your interest in there. I put poker and dentistry.
Stop.
I'm not kidding. My roommate, still one of my best friends, Max, practices in Columbus. He's a dentist now.
Yeah.
And we hosted poker games
No
throughout
way.
the 4 years we lived together. So we were both pre-dental.
Do you know that that's how I made money during college?
Oh,
I
me too.
I went to Florida State and I played online poker.
Nice. Yeah.
To try and make money.
Online poker got shut down right in like my senior year. It was like the saddest thing. Black Friday. I'll never forget it. When the DOJ just took it down.
Why?
Fraud, mostly.
Oh.
And lack of paying taxes.
Yes. Because they were all like based in the Bahamas and stuff.
You didn't use I used like Poker Stars.
Yeah, same.
And
I don't, in Canada, maybe it stayed open, but in the US, there's like a day, they call it Black Friday, where it was just
gone.
Shut.
Huh.
So, but I made money that way too. So anyhow, that was my random roommate.
Turbo poker on my poker
did all sorts of stuff.
Multiple screens.
Then in Columbus, they got a casino when I was in dental school. It's a good thing they didn't get this casino earlier, and I might not have got it into dental school.
You just spent all of your dental school money.
I would have just been there playing poker all the time.
Oh, yeah.
But I forget where we were going.
You're a random roommate.
Random roommate.
Yeah.
Oh, so yes. So he's pre-dental, super smart guy. And I was like, I think I do let him do the dentistry thing. His dad was a radiologist. So he had a little bit of family background. My mom's a nurse. So like we both had a little medical stuff, but my dad is an entrepreneur he was a businessman.
What did he do?
He did database administration stuff and started his own company I couldn't even tell you. I don't know. He's
Data
super
administration.
smart, though. Super smart SQL database, something or other. That rings a bell.
Okay.
Anyway, he owned his own business. My mom was a medical practitioner. I merged the two. Dentistry was a nice little niche. I didn't want to be a doctor who worked for someone in a hospital. So I went and talked to my advisor.
So you didn't do a residency then?
No. I went and talked to my advisor and was like, hey, it's engineering, pre-dental. And she was like, okay, it'll take you 6 years to do your undergraduate engineering and the pre-dental requirements, because Ohio State had like an internship, what do they call that, a co-op opportunity.
Yeah.
So you'd be gone for like semesters at a time. You could do the prereqs for pre-dental. Anyhow, I was like, okay, I'm just going to drop engineering. So I went into microbiology. So I finished with a bachelor's in microbiology, and then worked for a year actually before I went back to dental school as a microbiologist.
No way.
And it was funny because it was like one of those.
Do you think that helped you at all on your?
Yeah, I was really burnt out at school.
Oh.
And I applied to Ohio State and a couple other schools, and I didn't get an interview at Ohio State because long story short, I didn't fill out this one form. And the way Ohio State did it is they would give you points out of 100, and then they would rank the top 250 people would get interviews, and then it would whittle it down to 100. Well, I didn't make the top 250 because I didn't fill out this one form that was like extracurricular activities form, like volunteering.
Oh no!
Which apparently is worth 10 points out of 100. And I just didn't fill it out because I didn't know it was. I was like, well. So talked to the admissions team at Ohio State. They told me, and I was like, that's just such a silly reason not to get an interview. I actually got waitlisted at Case Western in Cleveland, and just at the time I got waitlisted, I had already graduated. It was in the summer after I graduated, and I had a new job at Abbott Nutrition, which makes Pediasure and Similac and stuff like that, as a microbiologist. And I thought, you know what? I want to take a year off. I'm burnt out with school. I don't want to pay Case Western prices because it's private.
How much does that cost?
It was like $75 a year plus living expenses.
Wow.
So it would have been like $500 by the time you got out. And Ohio State would have been around $300 by the time I got out.
Wow.
So I was like, I'm going to burn out. I'm going to have a job.
Right.
I already had the job. I liked it. I was actually a microbiologist, which was kind of neat. Like, holy crap, I'm actually using the stuff I learned in school. It was like one of those moments, like putting auger in plates and like, so I knew I had a pretty good feeling I'd get in the next year when I filled out the forms correctly.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to do so. So the following year I got into Ohio State. So I had a little gap year, which was great.
Cool.
Max did not have a gap year. He got straight in. So he actually was the class above me.
Okay.
So my random pre-dental roommate was, he filled out the forms correctly. So I'm pretty sure he's the one who told me
I mean, his
that form
dad's a
doesn't matter.
radiologist, so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was like, that form doesn't matter. And maybe he was scuttling me a little bit because he wanted one less competition. To talk to him about that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It's
That's
all coming
cool.
back to you
That's,
now.
yeah,
huh?
that's, I forgot about
So
that.
what year did you graduate?
13.
13. Okay. And then what kind of transpired from there? You graduated school with crippling debt.
Crippling debt, which I still have because, I was just hoping someday someone will be like, poof. No.
Wait, so it's 9 years later and you're still paying that off?
Of course.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the average payback on school
like
debt?
per month?
No. Yeah. Per month,
Well, I mean,
per
'cause
lifetime.
They cap it at like 15% of your gross income if you wanted to sign up for one of those plans. And or you
I don't know what that means. Tell me
so
what
like
that means.
if I made $100,000, the government wouldn't ask for more than 15,000. Like they would cap.
So the government will cap it at how much they request back. I thought it was like how much you can pay into it.
No, they'll cap it at the percent of what you make. So they won't like take all your income
But
if you
what's
sign
the
up for this plan.
interest rate? Like
like
a
7.
prime plus or
Some of them are
fixed?
5. Some are like 7 or 8. Could have refied actually last year. Would have been a good time to refi. But then it goes private, and then if something were to happen,
they can repo
that goes
your
on to
shit.
my family or my son or my wife. And right now with the government, if something were to happen to me, it
just
it goes away.
dissolves.
So it's I'm not one of those people like Dave Ramsey where like I can't sleep because I have debt. I mean, then I bought a house for the same cost as my tuition. Then I started a practice for almost $1 million. Like I'm like, what? Money is fake.
So it's not money is
fake. It's numbers in a bank account.
It's all
Live
about
your
the
life.
cash flow at the end of the month.
Do you have money at the end of the month to pay your bills and have a good time in a life? I have friends who are like the kind of people who are like, I'm paying this off as soon as possible and live like paupers, and good for them. That's what they wanted. I'm not that kind of person. So,
But
anyhow, I got out.
So that's interesting that you have you can still have at hundreds of $1,000s in debt, and a bank will still loan you $1 million as a dentist.
Because you can make money.
And what's the repayment? Like, what does that look like monthly?
It would be about $3,000 a month.
Holy.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
You just got to keep making more money.
Yeah.
I hope every year I practice, I make more money, or at least it's like a Ponzi scheme. It's like an individual, personal Ponzi scheme.
Gotta keep stacking.
I have to keep making more money
the
because
stack going in must be greater
it's really good motivation
than the stack going out.
Yeah, I have to make more money next month than this month because I got to pay for this month.
So I'm
Charles Ponzi the Fourth, DDS.
Like a contractor who's building his third house that the other two still haven't been paid for. So
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, so I'm over leveraged, Irene. I don't know what you want me to say. Like, let's hope this recession doesn't happen.
You just bought a new car too. It hasn't arrived yet, which tells me it was expensive and fancy.
I haven't paid for it yet.
Oh, okay. Because you don't have any money.
Well, because you don't finance it till you get the car.
The government takes
So
all of
once
your
it
cash.
The car
So
that's
do they
coming.
just pull it out of your account?
No.
How does that work?
I mean, it's like direct
I
debit.
went,
Yeah,
I
you
went to
set
school
it
and
up.
had a full ride, so
Yeah,
like
that's
I
nice.
don't know any of this.
I had friends who did Air Force, Army, and at the time I was like, man,
Brandon, did you ever talk to Brandon,
Uh-huh.
the dental student?
Yeah.
He said. So I interviewed him last year with Alan, and no student debt,
Well,
like zero.
short-sighted me was like, I don't want to give someone 4 years of my life and tell me where I can and can't go. And then like 4 years after graduating, I was
still
like,
did that.
the last 4 years were
We're basically
Anyway,
the same thing. Yeah.
I could have just made money, not had debt. But debt doesn't bother me.
No.
Obviously.
Debt bothers me now that I have it with my practice. I'm like,
Yeah, but like
it's
here's the
this
thing.
looming cloud over my head every day.
Some people will say, okay, if I can take a loan for $2 million from the bank, and I have to pay back, I don't know, $20,000 a month, but I'm going to make $25,000 a month, then it's a good idea.
Right.
other people's money.
The loan part doesn't bother me if I'm paying it off. Anyway, this is we're getting derailed because
No, we're not. I think
this is not a popular opinion, by the way.
No.
A lot of people do like to pay off their debts.
This is your opinion, and this episode is
But,
your episode.
I've never not done something for fear of like going into debt
I like
or
that.
like, I'm not going to put my life on hold. Cause my theory was I'm in college, I'm in dental school, I'm in my mid 20s. This is like the kind of the prime of your life to go travel and do things and be active. Why do I want to like sit in a apartment with a car and like try to pay something off? So when I'm 32 and like decrepit, like I am now, I'm not 32, but my knees are hurting and Anyway.
Yeah.
Wait till you get my age and you're actually decrepit.
Hopefully my loans are paid off by then.
Yeah. Let's hope. Interesting.
I paid mine in 3 years.
Oh, Craig.
Yeah, well, then you
But I only owed 60.
Get out of here. Yeah,
Okay.
this guy, graduated way before me. It was like
I know.
$2 a day.
Right.
Yeah.
It was
For $2 a day, you can
it was-
support a child in need or Craig's student loan bill.
I was on half scholarship for dental school, and total fee was $25,000. So yeah,
I got in-state tuition at least. I mean, someone calculated it while we were in school. They're like, "Hey, it's $450 a day that we come to school," and
Really?
and then they would get pissed when like a professor wasn't good or a patient didn't show up. Be like, "That's just wasted $450." Like thinking about it that way is just so depressing. I don't know why, but whatever.
Interesting.
So
then I feel like we've got a discussion to have over the last, let's just focus this on the last 2 years.
okay,
When did you start at Pathways? 2 years?
3 years ago.
3 years ago. So 3 years ago, just before 3 years ago, you made a huge decision.
So here's another example. I left my practice in Ohio.
This is where we're going.
So I get
Not
out.
playing with cords.
Sorry,
The rule number one
I'm a
of
cord twiddler.
rule number one. That's why this is here. Rule number one of being a podcaster is you don't mess with the equipment
Oh,
while
that's
you're
why she has
recording.
a Rubik's cube.
Yeah.
Okay, for those of you listening at home.
Yeah.
Um,
So let's take it to
let's go for when I left Ohio. How's that? 'Cause
why
that's where it
did
all
you leave
starts.
Ohio?
Partnership crumbled.
So let's go before that. Tell me about before the partnership crumbled. What was he's like cutting out the good parts here.
Well, I've never talked about it publicly, super openly, and
I mean,
and
you
I
don't
still
have
won't
to.
here.
You don't
But I will
have
say,
to, but
I will say this:
you had a practice with
most
somebody.
most partnerships fail in dentistry.
The last episode was just about that. Was about how Polaris started and a deep dive story on how that happened. So I feel like
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: my accountant who set up the partnership agreement said, "Hey guys, most partnerships fail,
yeah,
so let's plan to fail.
yeah,
Not pessimistically, but let's have an out."
yeah.
And I'm
Smart
best thing he
accountant.
ever did. So when things were kind of falling apart, and it was just like a difference of opinion. He was a little older than I was. He wanted to practice different. I wanted more high tech. I wanted to do more stuff and whatever. And the accountant had in the partnership agreement a very clear cut. How do we evaluate this? How do we exit? Who gets what and all this kind of stuff. So it still took 6 months.
Yeah.
But at the time, I'd come to VOD in 2019. Very pivotal trip for me. It was in Scottsdale. Hung out with a bunch of people who are now great friends and mentors, and some of them talked for hours late at night about my situation. And they're just, man, you should be looking at doing this. You should be making more than that. You own this.
Are we talking about Moody?
No, it was a guy named Colin Lathrop, mostly, who was giving me a lot of great business advice and just like you could go like moonlight 2 days a week at another office. Like basically, the office wasn't big enough for 2 doctors full time, but we were forcing ourselves to be there full time.
Yeah.
So we were eating each other's lunch. There was friction there because of that. I might get paid more one week than he did, but it would feel like I worked less because I did bigger procedures, and that rubbed him the wrong way. And all these kind of things just matriculated out to like, I think this is not good anymore.
Yeah.
So I had reached out to Moody in the summer after VOD about actually asking to see if I could be an associate for him at one of his implant practices, like one in Rapid. And I knew Chris Barrett was there, and I knew Chris Barrett was doing big things. And he was like, you know what, actually, I'm starting this. I have this nonprofit down in Phoenix, and I need someone to run the clinic. And you sound like you might be the perfect person for it. The thing is, I was not talented enough in dental implants to like name my own price or do my own thing, but I was good enough to like run a clinic that does a lot of basic dental implants. So I was like this perfect little Goldilocks zone for him, where it's like you can put this person there. They know how to like diagnose, treatment plan, but they're not like too expensive, like he could afford me. Right. So we initiated the partnership, dissolution or whatever it's called.
Yep.
Moved to Phoenix like early 2020, right before COVID. Started working for Justin at Implant Pathway. And really I was working for New Horizon, the nonprofit clinic.
Right.
And within about 4.
What is that for the listeners that don't know what that is? And what was your title? You were director
I was
of
clinic director.
Clinic director.
Yeah, surgical clinic director.
So what does that mean?
So he has 2 clinics at New Horizon. New Horizon is a nonprofit dental clinic in Tempe, Arizona. That is it's a 501(c) or whatever that term is, where we can do reduced cost implants because we have sponsors like BioHorizons, like donates the implants and biologics.
And you have a very specific demographic that you're working with there,
yeah,
right?
well, when it was started, it was veterans and teachers and stuff. Well, it's got so big, it's like we would take anyone, and we actually took referrals for a little while. And what it was in Phoenix in Arizona is very unique in that it has this Good Samaritan license where a dentist from a different state, not Canada yet, which would be nice, can say, hey, I have good standing in Ohio, show the board of Arizona. They go, okay, you can come down here and treat patients temporarily. Yeah, there's 3 stipulations. 1, you can't get paid for it. 2, the patient can't pay for it.
Okay.
And 3, there has to be an Arizona licensee.
Someone to oversee.
There, right? But it's a great thing because that means that Phoenicians, which I think is what we call people here.
Phoenicians?
Yeah, Phoenicians.
I like it.
Phoenicians can get treatment here.
How are we at the Venetian in
Or Phoenicians.
Phoenician?
Right now we're in the midst of Scottsdalians, but
Phoenicians can get treatment at no cost or low cost. Basically the patients would come in, my team and myself would treatment plan them, and they could get the surgeries for free because the surgeries were being performed by doctors coming in from out of state.
For the CE.
Correct.
Right.
And so the way I would describe it to the patients, they paid for like the restoration, the crown or the denture. So that was the only fee they had. And the way I would explain it to them is, hey, there's doctors who visit from out of state and they pay for your treatment. And they get a little bit of experience out of it. And the team here and some mentors will come in and be there the whole time. There's 2 doctors in each room, like always. And I set the doctors up as they were the ones paying, which essentially they were.
Well, they're paying with their tuition.
Yeah, the tuition covered the cost of stuff, right?
Right.
But it puts them in a light when the patients would come in for the courses, they were more, by and large, very, very like thankful. So if Dr. Harder came down, they'd be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for coming down and paying for this treatment and stuff like that. So my job was to come in and tighten that clinic up in the way that they do intake, consults, because I owned a private practice for 5 years, so I kind of do the systems and stuff. So that's what I did. And within about 3 or 4 months, I had started lecturing with Justin for Implant Pathway. And I took over the digital portion because Justin didn't have much.
So backing up a little bit, when you were in Columbus, you were really starting to get into the digital side of things, correct?
Yeah, I had I was doing all guided surgery. I had 3D printers. I met people like Corey Glenn and Baron Grutter and Danny Domain and like those kind of thought leaders who are kind of entering that digital space.
Danny is awesome. He was on the podcast last time. I'll link that episode below where he shared the story of how he printed a 3D ear.
Yes.
That story.
The
famous ear lecture.
Story. I've heard that lecture like 6 times.
I've never heard the lecture. Do you know?
It's pretty cool to see.
So the story behind Danny and I, which is, I mean, you can listen to the episode. I encourage you to listen to the episode. But we were here and he was sitting at the bar next to me. And I was sitting there on my laptop. I don't know what I was doing. I wasn't speaking that year. I was podcasting. So I think it was like working on my spreadsheet of who I was going to interview. And this guy is sitting right next to me and he starts talking to me. And I was like, oh, fuck, here we go. Some random dude at a bar.
Trying once again.
Are you here for the dental conference? Like, you know, the classic. And I was like, in my mind, I'm like, another guy trying to hit on me at a bar. And I look over and he was working on his slide deck. And there's like an ear on his, and I was like,
are you here for the dental conference?
Are you here for, that's exactly what I said. I was like, are you here for the dental? Like, what is that? And then he's like, oh yeah. And he tells me the story about it. And he like flips through a couple of slides. I was like, is this the guy's thing? Like, is this how he meets women at bars? Just prepared. Let me show you my slide deck. Anyways, he's a cool guy.
It's a big slide deck.
You need to listen to the episode.
Super smart dude. One of my favorite C's I took early in my implant career was going down and watching him and his uncle do implants in Lafayette, Louisiana. And if you stay an extra day, they'll take you fishing, which is always really fun.
Yeah. Redfish? Or what are they got?
We did tuna one year, like way out by the oil rigs. And then we did, I think it might have been redfish the next year.
That's cool.
It was really fun. Then we did like a big clam bake or whatever they do in Louisiana. Maybe it's not clams.
Oysters.
It's oysters. Whatever the fuck it is.
Whatever they're baking.
They boil a bunch of potatoes and stuff.
That's cool. Okay, we're derailing. The 15-minute episode is now 23 minutes. We're not even halfway there. So you decided to leave. You came here. You provided the service. You directed the directorship.
Yes.
You assisted with multiple hundreds of docs coming in. You were basically the guy that coordinated all of the CE stuff at that time, right?
Yeah.
Or you were like...
So one of the things I was going to say was, not to backtrack too far, but leaving Ohio was a big...
That was a huge cut.
Jump into a frying pan, because selling the scratch startup after 4 or 5 years is not a
good
profitable
idea.
thing.
No.
I mean, I left there with maybe $100,000 cash, of which I owed 60 to the government. I mean, like, it wasn't like
and 400 on your student loans.
Yeah, and the student loans hadn't been touched at this point. Come to find out, and I didn't know this, and I probably should have. When you sell a practice when you start a practice, you get a ton of tax benefits because you have all this debt, right? Well,
that comes back to haunt you.
They get their due, and they get it when you sell it. And so
they considered it. Is that called the capital gains here? What is that called here?
And they've got another term because they, you've already taken a bunch of the depreciation,
right?
So then, as much as you think that you should be able to still write off, it's not there anymore.
Yeah, there were So if I made let's say the practice is worth $1 million, so I get 500,000. Well, the practice still has debt of 800,000, so it's 400,000 of my debt. So I'm getting 100,000. I'm thinking, oh, capital gains 15-20%. I'm going to owe 15 to 20,000, and I've got 80 grand to like move across the country and all this kind of stuff, right? Well, no, I owe taxes on the $500,000, which is 50 to 75,000. Because I get taxed on the value, not what the cash. And so I didn't find that out till I'd spent a little bit of that money.
Oh no!
To move. So I had a unexpected tax bill, which my accountant probably told me that was coming.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope. But anyway, if now I wasn't a Mark Costas super startup. I didn't like come out of the gate like I wasn't 3 years like making millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So you probably could do it in 5 years and actually leave with some money if I had paid down that debt. But once again, we talked about debt.
Debt. We're over the debt. Let's retire the debt.
So after 4 or 5 years, it's not like I had this windfall. It was like, okay, I have enough money to basically start over.
Right.
And so I did that with Justin. Started taking on more and more lecturing stuff. Started redoing the slides with him.
What are your lectures mainly on?
I ended up, by the time we were done, I was lecturing on basic implantology, sinus grafting, complications, guided surgery, and there's something else. I can't remember.
Would you say you're known for the complications?
I became kind of the complications guy because Justin, we had a 2-day complications course, or he did, and I was like, we can make this bigger.
Yeah.
So he gave me like an 8-month runway, and we decided to do a twice a year complications course. So I made the whole slide deck for 3 days. And I remember the day I sat down with them, day one, we listed every complication we could think of.
Yeah.
And I had a Dropbox folder just with the folder names. And as I was in the clinic,
just dropping photos
just being
in
like,
there.
oh, and just started collecting stuff. Because New Horizon placed about 4,000 implants a year. And the team that I was in charge of was the team who saw them at follow-ups and post-op. And
so how many implants does a doc place when they come in?
They were placing about 12 to 15.
In a weekend?
Yeah.
Okay.
2 days. And
the patient coordination side of that, who did that?
The team there.
The team that works there. Is there a full-time team?
Yes.
Okay.
So the way it would work was the consult doc would kind of dictate what the treatment plan is, get it affirmed, and then that would determine where in the schedule they go.
Yeah.
So we had the schedule set up where it started kind of easier cases, got harder, and the second day was a full arch.
Oh, wow. And so you go all the way from single tooth implant from a dentist that's never placed that implant before to doing it all on X.
No, it's an overdenture. Like a 2-implant or 4-implant overdenture.
Okay.
All on X is a separate course. I guess I do talk on that too.
Okay.
So the whole gamut. And but I set up those systems, and then more and more Justin and I started partnering the lecturing. So by the time I left, I was on the road with them for every course. We redid a lot of like modules online. So like my face is still, we've got a lot of videos and stuff around that. This face right here.
That face.
But yeah, it was awesome. Cool. And then
what made you want to stop doing that?
You know what's interesting is I have some friends who are in like the financial sector or in the education sector. And you're familiar with like consulting, like what's a big consulting firm? Like PricewaterhouseCoopers or something like that, right? So a friend of mine is at Ohio State. He's a super smart dude. He's like a biomechanical
engineer,
ergonomics engineer or some stuff.
Organizational scientist.
Sure. He was the first time I actually saw 3D printing. He had a 3D printed spine that had a tumor on it. This is like in 2013. And they were doing this so the surgeon could see where the lesion was previous to surgery. I was like, well, that's pretty neat. Anyway, his lab had checkout lines, like a Kroger or a grocery checkout line. And what they were doing was seeing proper positioning for the checkout person for ergonomics from like lifting things and moving it.
Huh.
So they're like, okay, we're going to move this desk in 2 inches. Like that was one of his things. So it was like,
it's like an efficiency.
Yeah. That's what he was doing at the time.
Cool.
But in public sector education, you don't make a ton of money.
That's insane. I never thought that existed. That there's a guy and his job is to efficiency and ergonomically recreate
like the ideal
Kroger's checkout line.
Yeah. And that was probably one project
he was probably the
on.
guy that was like, we need to make this a conveyor belt. Like,
I think he was a little behind.
And then it's like, well, the distance is too long. The arm reach is too long. So we need to add a button on the back.
And then they just said, let's just make the customers check out on their own.
Yeah. So. Put all the onus on them. But anyhow, I'm
hilarious.
sure that was probably one little project of what he was working on. But
my mind is blown that is a job.
There's someone out there in academia.
Yeah.
And so then he went into consulting.
Wow.
This is not uncommon, right? You go from like public sector to private sector. He jumps into a consulting role and he's consulting for the University of Washington and making 3 times as much money because he's now this PricewaterhouseCoopers super consultant who's paid hourly and all this kind of stuff. And then, a couple of years after that, you jump back into public, but you've laddered up. You know, like you kind of go horizontally up, back over, and then so you do this game. And I feel like that's kind of what I did. I did private practice, went into education a bit, learned a ton, like complications management, surgery, all that stuff. And now it's like time to horizontally move back into the private sector, do the surgeries myself with these new skills, and kind of like, make a little bit more revenue, income myself, and kind of get back out into the real world.
Interesting.
But I like teaching. I wouldn't be opposed to. I'm still teach a little bit here and there.
Are you still at Pathways at all?
I'm like still a mentor there.
Got it.
Yeah, like
so you'll go in on the weekends when they do the courses and stuff, and you'll be the guy that's there.
Right. Yeah. I don't lecturing full time for him anymore, but I'm going to lecture for Justin. Like if he's out of town next Wednesday, which
you'll do his stuff.
I'll be there next Wednesday.
Cool. Awesome.
But yeah, so that's.
You had a baby recently.
Had a baby a year and a bit ago.
Yeah.
So spending more time with him has been really nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I left Pathway to get back in the private sector, but I don't want to own a practice again for all the reasons we talked about before.
Yeah.
I just don't want that. It also, on top of the whole, like, didn't make me a ton of money, which it could have if I did it right.
Your output was greater than your input.
Yeah.
Did you say that it was something that like filled you up? Like, were you excited about it every day, or was you excited about it at first, and then eventually you were like, man, this is so much more work than I'm.
Well, I like
because it sounds to me like you're kind of a perfectionist.
Yeah.
Like you and I saw your slides yesterday. They were great. So you obviously spend more time on one slide.
How it looks than the content.
No.
As opposed to this one gal who lectured and we saw her very last slide that took her like an hour and a half.
My last slide took an hour. That photoshopping. Oh my God. Did you see
good.
that slide?
I did see that slide. I got
that was a lot. Yeah, but I feel like, and that happens often. It's like the expectation of what that job is going to look like when you go in and you're like, oh yeah, that's easy. And then you have to like recreate things and revamp
you know what it's like
things.
too. I mean, you own a practice.
Yeah.
It sounds great, and it is. It's a good way to make money, but it's stressful in a different way. Like you're not a clinician anymore.
No.
And so what I didn't like about it, and I was lucky I had a partner, where like if I took 2 weeks off, he's still there,
you had coverage,
producing whatever. So if I didn't,
right,
well, like this year, if I decided I'm going to do a scratch startup, I would get skeeved out or like nervous about leaving for 6 weeks or 8 weeks a year.
Right.
Because I don't want to work 50 weeks a year. Like,
I know.
I don't want to have two weeks vacation I have to ask someone for. So, what's the point of working a job that makes you a good wage if you're not going to like take advantage of that and take 8 weeks off?
Right. Or however amount
or whatever,
you want.
Whatever you're comfortable with. But if I took 8 weeks off in a private practice, what do I do with the staff?
Sure.
Like just tell them they're not getting paid for 8 weeks?
No.
Or like, it just feels...
Yeah. Get a locum.
And the rent is still accruing. And
right.
the business, so...
And those student loans.
And the student loans aren't going anywhere. So,
okay, well, we're going to do a part 2 of this episode where you're going to tell us where you are now. Because I'm really excited for this, and I'm happy that you made this decision.
I'm a microbiologist now.
He's back to microbiology. He went back.
Screw dentistry.
So stay tuned for part 2 about where you're at now. And Craig, thank you for hosting this. Will you host the next one with me too?
I will.
Okay, we'll be back. We'll catch you soon. Peace out, peeps.